Welcome everybody to On the First Tee with JT. I am Janice Thornton with JT Fitness and Golf, and I help golfers take their golf game to the next level, improving your balance, your flexibility, strength, and mobility. So I love to help those golfers who want to improve their golf game. And today I have a guest. Her name is Lois Hughey, and she is with L-Fay Nutrition. And I am so excited to bring her on because being a personal trainer, I love to partner with people who can bring a lot of value to people. And I love showcasing awesome people. So today I'm welcoming Lois Hughey to the show. And Lois, welcome. So glad to have you here.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's exciting.
So, okay, today we're going to be talking about intermittent fasting and menopause. But first, before we get into that topic, let's talk a little bit about you and your nutrition coaching practice. So tell us a little bit about the clients that you serve.
Yeah, of course. So I mostly work with women over 40 who are perimenopausal or recently postmenopausal, because we know that women in that age group, we have a few different issues. It's not as easy as coaching a 30-year-old. It's not as easy as coaching a man. And so I love working with that age group, because when we start bringing hormones into the picture and loss of muscle and potentially the loss of bone mass very soon after menopause, the nutrition issues become really very, very important to tackle in the right way.
Perfect. So what are some unique issues that your clients face?
So most women who are in this age group notice that they start gaining weight in their abdomens. That's the biggest thing. You know, women who have had flat stomachs for years and years, they suddenly are gaining weight in their abdomens. That's a hormonal issue. And so that we work a lot with stress and things like that, because that weight gain in the abdomen is a direct correlation to stress in the body. And because of the loss of hormones, women just have less of a buffer to manage stress. And so stress becomes something that's really, really important to address along with nutrition during perimenopause. And then a lot of women at this age, we've spent a lot of years yo-yo dieting, and that has kind of downregulated metabolisms. And so very, very adapted metabolisms become an issue. And sometimes women this age have been chasing fat loss and eat very, very low calories, which is not so great. And it just makes things very, very difficult as they want to become stronger and are thinking about longevity a little bit more than weight loss. And what does that look like? And how do we start to incorporate fitness into their lifestyle so that they can, I always say I want a healthy 80-year-old who can get off the toilet by herself. And you don't get that by eating 1,000 calories a day.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny you use that analogy, because I think I tell people the same thing. I want you to be able to get up and down off the toilet.
Exactly.
It's like, I want you strong and healthy so you can do just activities of daily living that people truly just totally forget about and don't even think about, because we so gradually lose strength and mobility and all of that over time. And all of a sudden you just wake up one day and you're like, I can't get up. And it hits you like a brick wall does. Well, what does it look like when a client works with you?
So oh my gosh, I love working with clients so much. I know you do too. So we, kind of bring them into our atmosphere. Some people come in through the Facebook group. Some people find me on Instagram, but mostly we do one-on-one coaching. And so either a person will come in and they'll work with me if they really need to focus primarily on nutrition. Because that's my field. I have an assistant coach who also is certified in fitness. So if they're ready to do nutrition and fitness together, they work with my assistant coach. And we work one-on-one together, creating a very unique program to every single person. First, focusing on building a foundation. We know you don't get to put furniture in the house until you've got a foundation built, right? And so working on those really, really important habits like sleep, stress reduction, eating enough protein, drinking enough water, walking, lifting weights, things like that. We really get those things like firmly in place. Then most clients, not all of them, but most of them come because they want some weight loss. So then we move into a weight loss phase, and then nobody wants to be dieting forever. It's terrible. If you do it right, it's terrible. So you move into your fat loss phase. And then the last phase that we always work with people on is, how do you do this forever so that you're not always chasing the next best thing, looking for another fad, but that you know how to eat to support your life forever? And then ultimately what we are looking for is kind of we call it periodized weight loss, right? And I'm sure you know, right? So you spend most of the year eating your maintenance calories. Like, hopefully that's a lot of calories too, where you're just like super happy, fluctuating maybe by 5 pounds. And then for 6 to 8 weeks of the year, you go into a very structured diet phase. You come out of it and you spend the rest of the year, 48, 46 weeks, not dieting. And this is such a revelation to most of the women that I work with, because they've spent exactly the opposite, right? Like they diet, they go on a vacation, they don't diet. And then they go back to their diet because they gained weight on vacation. We want to flip that so that most of your life is spent just eating in a way that's really supportive to your body.
Nice. I love that idea. So what brought you into nutrition coaching?
So I was working for a big box fad diet company to earn money because my kids were in college and I wanted to put them through school, which I did, which is great. We have 1 year left on the youngest. But my mom had Alzheimer's. And so I really started doing a lot of research into Alzheimer's, which led me down this whole nutrition rabbit hole. And I realized, oh my gosh, I cannot be coaching for this big box company. I need to be like really educating women and helping them. And so while I don't focus specifically on Alzheimer's, we do know that nutrition has such an effect on brain health and gut health and things like that. And that Alzheimer's you can override the Alzheimer's genes by living a very like balanced life where you're having good nutrition, where you're moving your body, where you're doing all of the things that we're coaching our clients all the time to be doing. And so it was born out of not wanting to get Alzheimer's and just kind of, progressed into how can I help women?
So here's the interesting thing. If people understood eating healthier and exercise will cure about 90% of disease, that they would be jumping on board.
They sure would.
And it's not as hard as people make it out to be, that I think we just all get in our own way when it comes to nutrition. And people need to learn to have a good relationship with food.
Yes.
And not that, oh, food is bad, or that's calories or whatever.
Right.
And that's one thing of hiring a nutrition coach I think is important. But hey, let's dive into intermittent fasting and menopause. Because you had a post on LinkedIn or something, and I was like, okay, we need to talk about this. And so let people know what that post was about, because I just thought it was fascinating.
So a lot of times intermittent fasting is kind of just blasted out as this like cure-all to weight loss. And one of the things that is unfortunate throughout all of kind of research is that women are complicated. And so there isn't a lot of research done on women. And then when you take a woman in perimenopause, there's a lot of extra complications because every woman experiences perimenopause differently. So when you throw a blanket over something like intermittent fasting, which was only tested on men in their kind of youth, 20s and 30s, and for no longer than 6 weeks. And now we're saying, here is this study that was done on a completely different group of men for a very short period of time. Let's apply it to perimenopausal women and say that this is a great way to lose fat. And we don't have any really long-term studies on intermittent fasting, nothing longer than 6 months. And the only thing that has become clear is that there is no difference at all in the end results of 12 months between intermittent fasting and just regular calorie restriction. And so it's not some magic bullet. There isn't one. But I think a lot of times for perimenopausal women, it's thrown out like the only thing that helped me was intermittent fasting. And it actually kind of has the opposite effect for perimenopausal women. Is it can cause, mostly because most perimenopausal women already have a complicated relationship with food. They've
Mhm.
been dieting for some decades. Some people have dieted for decades. And intermittent fasting can exacerbate the whole like binge restrict mindset, because you do have to go a specific amount of time without food. And perimenopausal women in general need carbohydrates because of the stress that I was talking about before.
Mhm.
Our stress receptors are like our cortisol is very, very high because of our stress. We're taking care of parents. We're,
Mhm.
dealing with, like, I call them mini adults. So our like kids who are between the ages of like 18 and 24, who seem to need us more than they did when they were younger. So sometimes our husbands or we are changing jobs during that time. So we
Mhm.
have all of these like massive external stressors. Our body can't handle them. That cortisol, there's 4 times more cortisol receptors in the abdomen than anywhere else in the body.
That's a silly place for them to be.
Right?
Don't
We
you
don't like
think?
it. Which is why that weight gain around the abdomen is like very, very real. It's not like women aren't making that up. That's where
It's just, dang it, they need to go. They need to move.
yeah.
So you brought up a word that people I feel like are going to go when they hear you say it, because you brought up carbs. And gosh, carbs have such a bad connotation to
Yeah.
them. And I'll let you talk about it, but we all know we need carbs.
We do.
Seriously, our body needs it. But Lois, I want you to talk more about that.
Yeah. So carbs are our body's preferred source of energy. And carbs help counteract that stress reduction in our bodies. And so when women especially are cutting out carbs, they're really doing themselves a disservice, because the carbs really help with the cortisol receptors and bringing those down so that they aren't like all just going straight to our abdomen. When most people think of carbs, they're thinking of potato chips, donuts, ice
Mhm.
cream, bread, pasta, and all of those carbs are connected to a fat. And they're delicious. They're made to be delicious. And truly, those are the ones you want to eat less of. But
Yes.
vegetables are carbs, sweet potatoes, those things, rice, like, oh, people are afraid of a potato. Even white potatoes, eat
I
them.
know. I
They're
know.
so good. But I personally, like, grains don't agree with me. I wish they did, but they don't. And I still get about 160 grams of carbs a day just from, I do eat oatmeal. I can eat oats, and the rest all comes from fruits and vegetables. And nobody would consider 160 grams of carbs a day a low carb diet.
Mhm.
Um, and so all of my carbs are coming from whole food sources, and those are the carbs that you want. Those are the carbs that give you energy and that
Mhm.
really like help your body work as efficiently as possible. Plus, there's fiber in those carbs.
Yeah.
And all the research that's coming out on fiber is that it is protective against cancer. It is protective for your gut. It is protective for your brain. And so when you're eating high fiber and a reasonable amount of carbs, that's really the most healthy way to be eating, but to get those carbs from whole carb sources as much as possible, instead of leaning on the like super, super refined carbs. Those are problematic. Not that you should cut them out entirely, because we want some joy in our eating for
Yes.
sure. I enjoy a bowl of ice cream as much as the next person, and a donut if I can, but that shouldn't be the main source of carbs. The main source should be whole food carbs.
Well, it shouldn't be the norm that someone just is like, oh, let me go ahead and, if people actually flipped and read the label to see how many carbs and just protein and fat is in each thing that they put in their mouth, that is eye-opening. I remember having a client who she loved orange juice. She would have a 16-ounce glass of orange juice. I know. And I told her, I go, I want you to look up like the carbs in that,
And the sugar.
the sugar in that. And she just about fell over. She goes, I thought I was being healthy. I go, orange juice is healthy, However, you could just eat an orange.
Eat an
Or
orange. Yeah.
make it a small 4-ounce glass of orange juice. If you really want that orange juice, make it 4 ounces, not
Exactly.
16.
Yeah.
And she was just like, holy, I mean, it's just eye-opening once you start like really reading labels and that kind of thing for it. So let's talk about intermittent fasting though, and the different, like some people will fast for 20 hours, 16 hours, 12 hours. I don't mind going 12 hours
Yeah.
without eating.
Most people go 12 hours.
Yeah.
Like,
And that's not a big deal, but it's like when I start getting into 14 and 16 hours, I get hangry. And if I'm not busy enough, it's like, then all of a sudden I'm like, now I want a bunch of food because
exactly.
I'm just too hungry.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So part of the problem is the people who are doing like the longer fasts, like 14, 16, 18-hour, even heaven forbid, 20-hour fasts. We know how important protein is. And that especially perimenopausal women should be eating more protein, not less, because we are losing muscle mass so quickly. And the only way to build muscle mass is by eating protein. And so we want to make sure that we're eating it. Well, let's say that you are fasting 16 hours a day, right? And you have, what does that leave?
8 hours.
8 hours to eat. Okay.
Mhm.
And now you're supposed to get 120 grams of protein in basically 2 meals.
That's a lot of protein.
That's a lot of protein. Where if you are spreading your protein out over 12 hours, now you have 3 meals, maybe a snack. It's a lot easier to fit your protein into that time period. Sorry, my watch keeps buzzing at me.
Okay. But just on that real quick though, our body's only, like if we had 60 grams of protein at one meal, our body can't even process that much and utilize it in a proper way anyway.
Well, it can. I mean, that's kind of old research that our bodies
Okay.
can only process 30 grams of protein at a time. That's pretty old research. Now we know that our body can process a much higher amount of protein, but like literally you would be so full, you couldn't even eat. Now, there is a benefit to, a 12-hour fast. So if you finish your last meal at 6 p.m., 7 p.m. and don't eat again until 7 a.m., that's a 12-hour fast. You won't even notice it. But once you start moving your body and stuff, you want to start putting some carbs in your body, especially if you're working out in the morning, things like that. Your body does not do well without energy. And so giving your body the energy, like I said, especially if you're working out in the morning, is truly the best way to go. And then the other thing is that way you're eating around your circadian rhythm, which is also good. So you start your day with a meal, and then ideally, and this is just our Western culture, right? Like ideally, our biggest meal would be in the morning and we would eat less throughout the day, but our Western culture has it flipped. But we do want to start the day with water and some carbs and some protein first thing in the morning, keep that fat content a little bit lower at the start of the day. And then, but I'm just not a fan of intermittent fasting because it really just can lead to so many issues throughout the day. So lack of protein, low energy. And then, if you're done eating, like if you can't eat until noon or 1 o'clock, you might find like you are starving. And like you said, like hungry by then, you're ready to go. Or the women who like stop eating at 4 o'clock and then they just have they aren't eating with their kids. They aren't eating with their spouse. They all in the name of like some fat loss, which you can achieve the same way without intermittent fasting. So for most people, there is no benefit to it at all.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, Lois, I love your perspective on all this. And I think we could talk for a very long time on this. But however, let's end there.
Yeah.
And thank you so much for being on. And how can people get a hold of you?
So I have a private Facebook group, which is a great place to be. It's called Perimenopause and Menopause Diet and Nutrition Tips. Just come on in. I will send you a message right away. I'm also on Instagram at l.faynutrition.
Perfect. So everyone, if you want to get a hold of Lois, do so, and she can help you get you on the right track. Thank you so much, Lois.
You're welcome. You're welcome.